Hey, this is Keith Shovlin with Son of Swift Genealogical Pursuits. This is the 10th of December, 2024. We're getting into it. It's almost wintertime. So, we're gonna, was thought about it was that I was going to follow up on some of the stuff I teased from after Thanksgiving, but there's been so much that I've been finding just as part of dealing with the Find a Grave glitch and some of the mysteries that I discovered before last episode that's what I'm going to deal with most today. First of all, I'm going to talk about conflicting research. Now, I have put a lot of time and effort into my family history research over the years. And sometimes I come upon someone else that is doing research as well. Excuse me, I feel slightly stuffed up. And sometimes the information doesn't match. And I'm going to give you an example here. Looking at the tree I have here in front of me, this is dealing more with the roaches again. On two parts of the roach family, I found differing information. So first, Robert Van Dusen Roach, his mother, Rebecca N. Potts. And then from there, Margaret Rogers, Oliver Cromwell Rogers, Rebecca Montgomery. That's what I'm finding across all of them. Then I find Oliver Cromwell Rogers' father, William Rogers, that matches. Now his grave says John Rogers. And there's a note on it that when the grave was placed, and it's a veteran's grave, it's one of the plaques that mark his service in the Revolutionary War, it was put in error. His wife, Dorcas Oliver. Now, I thought that's going to be an extremely rare name. I found 5 Dorcas Olivers in the census for the year that I was looking at. And then I find a couple people pointing to her name being Dorcas Lawrence. So, which one is which? That's going to be what I have to look into. Right now, I'm looking at possibility of her being Oliver, and then her father being Joseph Oliver. And I've seen trees that have his wife listed as Rebecca, and some listed as Catherine or Samantha, one of the two. But yeah, there's no agreement on that. But then back to Rebecca Montgomery, Oliver Cromwell Rogers' wife. I have her here listed as the child of Samuel Montgomery and Margaret Barker. And this is based off the fact I have her being in Adams County, Ohio, born in Ohio, born 1808. And here we have Samuel Montgomery, I've listed as her father, originally from Ireland, but then settling in Adams County, Ohio. So that was the connection I made to be able to establish him and Margaret Barker as her parents. But when I look at the suggested, going back to Rebecca, there are other people that have different parents listed for her. And here they tie her to Shelby County, Kentucky, or Hendricks County, Indiana. And even more had parts of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So when you're getting back 200 years and you have a common name like Rogers or Montgomery, you're going to have lots of families. And unless you have very clear family histories that you're going off of, and what I'm seeing, especially on some of the ones I've been looking at, is them referencing things. Like here, they have a GeneaNet tree that has no parents listed. And for her husband, Oliver Cromwell Rogers, there is a Find a Grave. And we view that record. It has the Rebecca Montgomery. And then I click on her. It gives me a Rebecca Montgomery that didn't match when I searched. And it lists her as being the daughter of Patrick Montgomery and Nancy Haddon Montgomery. Now, this Patrick Montgomery is born 7 years after the Montgomery I established, and Nancy being born slightly after. the mother that I had thought was the one. And so you got to remember the 1840 census and earlier only listed the head of household's name on it. So the census is completely unreliable for being able to track down anyone in a family prior to 1800. Now, looking at Patrick Montgomery, what they have here, born 1773, Lancaster County, now Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, married Nancy Hatton, and they have the children, including Rebecca. And then later see him in Brown County, Ohio. And then a possible reference to a Patrick McGarvey may be mixed with Montgomery. So I see that there was a Patrick and Nancy with their daughter, Rebecca. But it's them in Pennsylvania, where everything I had for Rebecca Montgomery was that she was born in Ohio. So it looks like this obviously it's published in 1972, some of this information from the Meads family of America, but I don't see it specifically saying that this Rebecca is definitely the daughter of Patrick and Nancy. And like even here it says here, born Adams County, Ohio. Same thing I had, buried in the Rogers Cemetery. And it says on the 1880 census, since she was alive still in 1880, and it would list that she was born in Ohio. It does not clearly say a reference to parents, but the connection here is made. So who do you trust? Sometimes, as I've said in previous ones, like when I was looking at the Foys, and then I had one set of history that I was going with, and there was another set I found I'm testing out now. It could be I have the wrong information. In the past, I have had wrong information at times, leaps I've made that ended up being not the ones. Now, going back, let's go back to the tree here. And let's look at the other side. So that's the Montgomery's there. And of course, then we have the Prices. Now, I had here Noah Price, and I had found census records or information that his wife is being Mary, and I tied that to the Brock family, and that's Brocks and the Millers. Let's see here, several connections around going back to Germany. Well, when I looked up Noah Price in Find a Grave, I found the entry here, and it lists his wife as Mary Chain Sprouse Price. And we have here no gravestone, so there is not a grave to get this information off of. We have a certificate of marriage or a certificate of death for Mrs. Mary Price that does not list the names of her parents. It looks like it says Collins for father and mother. There's just that's one, and then the U.S. is where they're born. So the death record does not list her parents' names, which is, of course, always just upsetting when we have incomplete paperwork. Here, there was, the record of when she died. Okay, Mary Price, and then you have a grave, and it's not even. I mean, we know it's not her grave; it's just a random grave. It seems. It's not even her husband's. Not even Noah Price's. So where are we getting Sprouse? That I do not know. But someone else doing research made that connection to Sprouse. Let's see, it says down here, created by Mary Louise in 2009. So I don't know where they got this information. I have no way of confirming it. So I'm continuing to go with the Bronx for now, because I'm not sure the Sprouse until further notice, until I find anything. Like here, reference to Noah Price's, we have his obituary, and it talks about who he's survived by his sons. It makes no mention of his deceased wife. He now does have his father, John Price, which I think is what I had. No. Oh, I have a different father. So, okay. My information about Noah Price is going to be changing. Because at least if that's the Noah Price that I'm supposed to be looking up, that's definitely the Noah Price that is the grandfather, the father-in-law of Robert Van Dusen Roach, then it lists here Father John Price. So previously I had here listed as Samuel. And so there's changing information right there. And that is going to be official. That's much more official than right there, because obviously it has his death notice. So that's something I'll be looking at more in the days to come. That was quite a bit of history there I had, as you see, looking at that tree with the Orbos and the Prices. I have Prelimin and Stolp going back hundreds of years. So wow, that looks like that's about to all come falling down. Man, I didn't even notice that when I looked at that before. I was too thrown off by the different name of the spouse. So okay. So with that, that's where I am in the research this week. Following up on the find a grave glitch that I talked about last week, where when you add find a grave hint to your tree, it will not. Might bring in the information about the person's parents, but it then is listed on their tree, but it's no on their thing, but no longer listed as a possible hint, and therefore you have to go into the record to try to get the extra information. It's just adding extra steps that's making it a little bit more difficult. And for someone not paying attention, you're missing out on important information. You could be missing out on a whole other generation. You could be missing out on things like the obituaries and things that are on find a grave. So really, if you're looking at a find a grave entry and putting something on your tree, then you really should but go into the find a grave page. Don't go on Ancestry's find a grave page. Do to the find a grave page itself and look at all the information that's listed there, because there's going to be a lot more stuff than that's what's just ported over into Ancestry when you accept the hint. All right, now let's take a quick break. I'd like to talk about our sponsors for this evening. Once again, if you'd like to support the program, support what I'm doing in genealogy research, and support my YouTube efforts, just go ahead and check out the merch store at tpublic.com/stores/Swift. And if you are interested in setting up your own merch store, you click the link in the description below, or just go to t.pub/link/AS21 and use that to help get you started and you set up your own store. All kinds of different items available. You put your own logos, your own designs, and things up there. If you want to keep up with me on Tumblr, that's the main place where I show my research at sonofswift.tumblr.com. You got a question, you can email me at shovlin@gmail.com. That's the Irish spelling, SEIBHLEAIN. And then also sponsors, we have Sticker Mule. Click on the link in the description below to try out Sticker Mule, get a discount, and you can start getting those weekly deals, being able to save on things. And it's great because not only do you have great things available and the great quality items, but the deals come with free shipping. I've got a 11 by 17 poster coming my way with free shipping. Only was $9 to print. That's probably just a little bit more than I get for printing it at high quality at a local printer, but it's going to come in. It should be a little bit better quality possibly, but it's something I'll be checking out. And then, of course, also we're brought to you powered by StreamYard. That's what we use for streaming this episode, and use it for other programs that I work on, including the Trucker's Delight podcast network. Several people on. I'm on a free account. I'm able to share this stuff. I'm able to add information on here. I'm able to add my branding and have open chat and broadcast it to YouTube, to Facebook, to Twitch, to various other things. You go into one of the paid accounts, you can broadcast to multiple feeds, not just YouTube, or just Facebook, or just Twitch. But you could get your stuff out there and be able to have more people on, more people take part, and really spread your message. So click on the link in the description below and consider joining StreamYard if this is something you're interested in doing. All right, let's go to the email. All right, so where we left it. So first, let's do the Google Alerts, the names for this week, starting with the surname Angevine. All right, so here's Angevine Farm, Warren, Connecticut. Angevine, by the Angevine Keeper. That's a school in France. Oh man, my nose is really stuffy now. Let's see. Prep basketball team, Peninsula Daily News, Alex Angevine. Angevine Road, Covered Bridge. No. Detour around Covered Bridge, so use Angevine Road in St. Joseph County. Let's see. The other was Molly Angevine, a Scottsville Planning Commissioner. Let's see. La Défense Angevine avant de trouver le local opposé de Fafalo. Okay. Other efforts from Charlie Angevine, so a high school basketball player, it looks like. Alex Angevine announced commitment to Western Oregon University baseball. Good luck, Alex. Class of 2025 for Port Angeles High School in Washington. I have an obituary from 2012 for Harry Angevine. So must have been an update there. Instagram's Brav Hooligans, Judas Angevine versus Rene. Angevine Promotions, Unlocking the Power of Shindo Life, a guide to scripting and customization. More Angevine pick click, and then photo posted by Charlie Angevine on Threads. All right, back then, of course, to Shovlin. Let's see. Wolf attacked Shovlin during Hamilton Abu Dhabi disaster. That's Andrew Shovlin from Mercedes. Shovlin, it's Hamilton, Mercedes. Sorry, it gets a little boring at times. Andrew Shovlin. Wow. It's definitely racing season, it seems. And finally, Eve Shovlin from North Schuylkill girls basketball in the Pottsville Republican Herald. So mostly it is Andrew Shovlin, and then there's one other Shovlin. So that's it for that. Okay, next up is the Mary Deiter mystery that I was talking about last week. So how this started was I had on this was on my great grandfather's obituary, was reference to his daughter, Mrs. Mary Deiter. So that's this one here. John F. Shovlin dies in Athens. Two brothers, by another daughter, Mrs. Mary Deiter of Newark, New Jersey. Now, here's what I found so far this week. So Mary Deiter, here, note she's listed as Mrs. Mary Deiter, and this was when he died in 1947. So I was then able to track to through going over to her brother-in-law, as it were, Cletus Bonner, who was raised partially by John F. Shovlin when he married Cletus's mother, Mary Mellon Bonner, and it noted in the obituary as copied here that leaves behind a foster sister, Miss Mary Deiter of Newark, New Jersey. Now that's Miss, M-I-S-S, so denoting her as unmarried, not married. But this would be in 1936. So now we have 1947, she's listed as Mrs. 1936, she's listed as Miss. So sometime between 36 and 47, she got married, but is not listed by her husband's name. Now, I did a search I was doing my family history research, trying to track down this information on her. And I came upon her in the 1920 census. This is a screen grab taken of the official Ancestry library interface, but it had Mary Deiter or Dester. Come on. And this is born about 1904, living in Midland, Pennsylvania. So that would be I don't know why I didn't order. So that's occupation sales lady. And she's living with my great-great-grandfather, John Shovlin, his wife, Mary Mellon, Cletus Bonner, John Shovlin, Anna Shovlin, all expected. And she's listed here as a ward. Now, you notice here on the side, usually they give you hints to other ones that seem connected to that person. Well, it gives me hints to a Miriam Deiter. So, different name. Now, Mary and Miriam aren't too far off. Usually when I hear Miriam, what I hear come off of it is like Midge in the case of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And then here it's Miriam Evans. But there it shows her there in 1910. And the Miriam Deiter is a married name. So this here doesn't give me anything, unfortunately. So then I look at the 1930 census, and I have a Mary M. Deiter living still in Beaver County, but she's actually moved over to Beaver, my hometown, the county seat. Birth year about 1905, so just 1 year off from what we have. She's listed as the head of household, but that's because she's living in an apartment on Sharon Road. And she's living with one other person, and that is. Where did it go? For some reason, picture number 4 is loading as number 1 and all over the place. She's living with a Pamela L. Pennock, listed here as a guest. Now, when you then look at the similar names suggested, we have Helen Hahn, Marie Deiter getting married in New York. We have Howard Hahn, Marie Deiter, marriage index for New York. Howard Hahn in the 1940 census. Her name is Mary. How are we getting Helen? Then we get Howard Deiter in the Social Security. So Deiter is a married name for Helen Hahn. Why would she be connected to this Mary Deiter? Then we get Marie Rapp for U.S. City Direction. So all very confusing. So then I took a step back, and let's find a Mary Deiter in the 1910 census. She'd be 6. And so then I find this Mary Deiter in Coolbaugh, Monroe County, Pennsylvania. This is just outside Luzerne County, not far from where the Shovlins were living before they moved from Midland. So she's shown listing here as she's the granddaughter to the head of the household. And let's see if this. Oh, all right, here we go. And that grandfather is listed as Owen Deiter, a father Reuben, a mother Gertie Deiter, and a sister Verna. Now this is in 1910. So then I followed, and of course, then it represents the 1920, and then a Mary Ellen Deiter in the newspaper obituaries, but that ended up not going anywhere. So then I followed with, let's see, all right. So then I looked up 1920. Reuben and Gertie are living in Sayre, Bradford County, Pennsylvania, which isn't far from where Mary Shovlin Cahill is living, and where John and Shovlin ends up living before he dies. And then in 1930, they're living in Moore, Northampton County. So then I look up, okay, what more can I find about them? So we have Gertie, or Gertrude Necht Deiter. So she is listed here. We have husband Reuben. We have the daughter Verna that we saw. And then we have a son, George Hobensack Deiter, or Henry, and a daughter, Sophia. Not going to worry too much about this. Now, looking at her obituary, shown here, it says surviving are 3 daughters. So listed here is Verna, George, and Sophia. So that's 2 daughters and a son. Surviving are 3 daughters: Mrs. Joseph Simon Jr., Vineland, New Jersey; Mrs. Russell Davies, Stroudsburg; and Mrs. Harrison, with whom she resided; 1 son, George Deiter, now serving in England with the United States Army. So that's George. So that's the son. And now it lists 2 daughters there and a third not there. Looking at George's record. Here's George, having died in 1955 in Orlando, son of Reuben and Gertrude Deiter, World War II veteran, survived by his widow, 2 sons, a daughter, 2 sisters, and 1 half-sister. So we continue to have 2 sisters, so that would be Verna and Sophia perhaps, but then a half-sister. So that gives us that little bit of information there. Of course, Reuben and Gertrude, siblings Verna and Sophia. And we see here Verna Harrison. So when we go back to Gertie, so that's the Mrs. Harrison with whom she resided. We know there. Sophia E. Deiter. Could that be Mrs. Russell Davies? Click on her. And, oh, they don't have any for me here. Oh, she died at age 15 to 16. So now that's confusing. So he said he was survived by 2 sisters and a half-sister, and he died in 1955. And Verna had actually died the year before. So, well, this is just getting more and more confusing. Yeah, survived by his widows, married, 2 sons, one of them another, a daughter, 2 sisters, and 1 half-sister. But his 1 sister, I have there 2 of his sisters that both already died. So there's more to this family than what is listed on this Find a Grave entry. But so now I have, okay, we know Harrison. Verna is Harrison. Sophia did not get married. So that leaves 2 possibles. Russell Davies, Mrs. Russell Davies of Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, or Mrs. Joseph Simon Jr. of Vineland, New Jersey. So that's where my research is now taking us. She died in 1943, so that's between Cletus Bonner's death and John F. Shovlin's death. And we have a Mrs. Joseph Simon Jr. listed as one of her 3 daughters. It doesn't say preceded in death other than her husband. So I'm now looking at trying to track down Joseph Simon Jr. of Vineland, as that being who Mary Deiter married, such that in 1947 she's listed as Mrs. Mary Deiter. but that's keeping her maiden name, but could be the wife of this Joseph Simon Jr. So that's where my research is now pointing me, and hopefully I'll get into finding records of how she came to live with them, but that seems like that's going to be a much bigger haul. Now for this week's interesting starter. So I went back to John Shovlin Sr., looked at his obituary, and of course, I had been doing a lot of research into his first wife, that being Margaret Garvin Shovlin, who is my great-great-grandmother. And I note here, from what I have in my history, and I'll even bring it back to here, bring it back to the tree. Margaret Ann Garvin, daughter of John Richard Garvin and Mary Elizabeth Foy, with 3 children: Mary Ann Molly Shovlin, who became Molly Cahill, James Shovlin, and John Francis Shovlin, my great-grandfather. Just the 3 children. We have her having died April 1st, 1899, in Adams County, Pennsylvania. I got her immigration records. I've got her marriage record to my great-great-grandfather. And then we have a death record listed after a short illness. So now here's the mystery we uncover this week. That is Miss Margaret Garvin. It took me a couple readings, quite a few readings of this obituary to notice it. The remains of Mrs. John Shovlin, who died at her home in Highland on Saturday after only a short illness, arrived here yesterday, were taken to the home of Mr. and Mrs. James Shovlin, from which place interment was made this afternoon. My nose will not start running. What the heck? The deceased and her husband formerly lived here, and she leaves a host of friends to mourn her loss. She was about 24 years of age, and her untimely death is doubly pathetic. Please, obit writers, don't use pathetic in an obit. Just don't do it. And that she leaves 4 small children, the oldest 6 years and the youngest only 4 weeks of age, also survived by her husband and several brothers and sisters. So she died in 1899, the 6-year-old being the daughter Mary Ann Molly Shovlin, and then of course the sons James and John Francis Jr. John Francis being born in 1897, so he would be 2 years old at the time of her death. So that leaves a 4th child, youngest, only 4 weeks of age at the time of her father's death. Time of her mother's death. So now, here's my new mystery. There's a aunt or uncle that I know nothing about. It seems sort of obvious from what little information I have found that this child may not have survived. I have had that in other parts of the family. Obviously, we saw Sophia Deiter, who only died at age 15. I have a cousin, Terrence Shovlin, that died after only a month. I remember finding his grave at the cemetery, and that was quite a mystery back when I was a teenager. So now, who was the 4th child? And that's a mystery for me to move on from here. All right, so that wraps up everything I wanted to cover this week. There's a heck of a lot more to go through, obviously. It's a never-ending search. And hopefully what I have here was helpful for you. Maybe if there's some surnames that I brought up, family members that you haven't got. And I did find another person this week, that a part of my family that I didn't know existed. And that was Miss Ella Sills Roach. She married my great-great-grandfather Van Dusen Roach after his previous wife had died, and then she died of consumption at age 28. So she would be the stepmother of Robert Van Dusen Roach, who is the one who married Price. And we know that his first wife, maybe Mary Margaret Price, died in 1904 or thereabouts, but after the birth of their daughter Pearl Etta Roach in 1900. So then he married Ella Sills, and then she only survived a short time. So that's interesting how quickly they went from being married to her passing from consumption. So, all right, so that's basically it. Let's see. But yeah, so that's what I have for this week. Thank you all for watching. Good luck to you in your own family history research. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to try to update the blog more often on some of these things, the interests about Mary Deiter, all these other things I'm finding, and trying to track down the proper information. But until then, good luck, and hopefully you'll find something new. Hopefully you can share with your family as well as we in this holiday season. Good night.